If Mehmed the Conqueror set the stage, then his great-grandson, Suleiman, was the ultimate director. For over 40 years, he would preside over an empire so vast, so rich, and so powerful that Europe simply called him the Magnificent. The Ottomans called him Kanuni, the Lawgiver. This wasn't just a golden age, it was the sun of the Ottoman Empire. And at its zenith, Suleiman would cast a shadow across the entire known world. Suleiman inherited an empire hungry for glory. His first target, Belgrade, the seemingly impregnable gateway to Europe. For decades, it had resisted Ottoman might. But Suleiman brought a new level of military genius. He didn't just attack, he orchestrated. Cannons pounded the walls for days, sappers tunneled underneath, and wave after wave of his elite janissaries finally broke through. Belgrade fell in 1521. The road to Hungary, and then Austria, lay wide open. 5 years later, the King of Hungary, Louis II, foolishly met Suleiman's army on the plains of Mohacs. It was a slaughter. In less than 2 hours, the Hungarian army was annihilated. King Louis drowned trying to escape, and a significant portion of the Hungarian nobility perished. This wasn't just a victory, it was a demonstration. Europe understood. The Ottomans weren't just back, they were stronger than ever. The ultimate prize lay just ahead: Vienna, the heart of the Holy Roman Empire. If Vienna fell, Europe would be irrevocably split, and the path to Germany and beyond would be clear. Suleiman brought 100,000 men and hundreds of cannons. But the weather turned. Relentless rains, early snows, and tenacious Austrian defenders bled the Ottoman army dry. His heavy cannons got stuck in the mud, and the janissaries, for the first time in his reign, failed to breach the walls. After 3 weeks, Suleiman, realizing the logistical impossibility, reluctantly withdrew. Vienna held. Europe breathed a collective sigh of relief. The tide had been pushed back, if only for a moment. But Suleiman wasn't just a conqueror. He was the lawgiver. He overhauled the entire Ottoman legal system, making it fairer and more efficient, shaping the empire for centuries to come. Under his patronage, Istanbul became a global center of art, architecture, and science. The architect Mimar Sinan built breathtaking mosques and bridges that still stand today. Poets, philosophers, and artists flourished, creating a cultural legacy that rivaled any in the West. That Suleiman's reign was long, but even the sun eventually sets. In 1566, at the age of 72, leading his army on one final campaign to Hungary, the old sultan died in his tent during the siege of Sijidvar. His death was kept secret for 48 days to avoid demoralizing the troops. With Suleiman, the Ottoman Empire reached its absolute peak. The world knew its name, feared its power, and admired its culture. But the seeds of its decline were also sown. The successors who followed him would lack his genius, his drive, and his iron will, the Magnificent. The lawgiver, he was the ultimate sultan. But with his passing, the long, slow twilight of the Ottoman Empire began. Every empire has a peak, but the view from the top is often a cliff. After Suleiman the Magnificent died in 1566, the Ottoman Empire didn't collapse overnight. Instead, it did something worse. It went to sleep. The terrifying sultans who led from the front of their armies were replaced by men who had never seen a battlefield. Men who were raised in the cafes, the gilded cages of the harem, hidden away from the world until the day they were given the keys to the universe. For the next 100 years, the power didn't lie with the sultans. It lay with their mothers and wives. This was the sultanate of women. While the sultans indulged in luxury, brilliant and ruthless women like Hurrem, Nurbanu, and Kozum ran the empire from behind the scenes. They were master diplomats and brutal survivors, but their focus was often on keeping their sons on the throne, not on the borders of the empire. In 1571, the world finally realized the Ottomans were mortal. At the Battle of Lepanto, a coalition of Christian nations destroyed the Ottoman navy. The Grand Vizier famously told the Europeans, "By defeating our navy, you have only shaved our beard. It will grow back thicker." He was right. They rebuilt the ships in months. But the fear was gone. Europe realized that the scourge of God could be beaten. One last time, the Ottomans tried to strike the killing blow. In 1683, they returned to Vienna with the largest army the West had ever seen. The city was days away from falling. But then, from the hills, came the sound of 1,000 trumpets. Visual, a low-angle shot of the winged hussars, Polish heavy cavalry with massive wings, charging down a mountain. This was the largest cavalry charge in human history. The Ottoman lines were shattered. The dream of a Muslim Europe died that day on the hills of Vienna. As the Industrial Revolution transformed the West into a world of steel and steam, the Ottomans stayed frozen in time. They became the sick man of Europe. Their janissaries, once the terror of kings, became a corrupt mob that murdered sultans who tried to modernize. The empire was no longer a conqueror. It was a victim, slowly being carved up by Russia, Britain, and France. In 1922, the 600-year-old flame was finally extinguished. The Sultanate was abolished. The empire that had reached from the gates of Vienna to the sands of Arabia was gone. From its ashes, a new man would rise, Ataturk, to build a modern republic. But the world would never forget the name Ottoman. They were the bridge between East and West. They were a nightmare to some and a golden age to others. But in the end, even the greatest empires are just sand in the wind. Channel CTA, what was the real reason the Ottomans fell? Was it the Kaifs, the winged hussars, or the failure to modernize? Let's talk in the comments. Thanks for watching the Epic of the House of Osman.